Okay, so today we're going to be looking at something a bit different, and that is apparently an AI can guess your password based off of what you're typing. So before we start this video, we're going to play a little game, all right? So I want you to guess the sentence that I just typed in a second, and then if you get it right, comment down section below if you think you got it right. So give me 1 second. All right, so I deliberately hit my keys a bit louder on purpose, just so people can maybe guess. And then if an AI can guess that, then then we're really in the end times, because apparently keys sound, keys can the way you type your keys are a bit different. But I guess my typing style is predictable. But alas, I came across this article last week, and it was kind of weird because I saw it and it didn't make a lot of sense, but it says here, streamers at risk as AI can guess passwords based on the sounds of keys being pressed. And that sounds a bit weird because, for how many hours streamers are streaming, I don't believe that sound is very weird, especially the way it travels and yada yada yada. But apparently, certain patterns, according to this article we're going to take a look at, can do that. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. So it's actually from a Dexerto article, and I'm just going to go straight to the meat and potatoes here, where it says AI can guess passwords based on sound. According to the research published as part of the IEEE European Symposium of Security and Privacy Workshops, bad actors can use AI on video conferencing tools like Zoom or while listening to a Twitch stream. The study says researchers pressed 36 keys on a MacBook Pro, including all the letters and numbers, 25 times in a row with different fingers and varying pressure. The sounds were recorded over a Zoom call and on a smartphone placed a short distance from the keyboard. Researchers then fed the recordings into AI, which learned how to recognize sound from each key pressed on the computer. It's unclear what model they used, however. And that raises a lot of questions because, because my keyboard, I have a mechanical keyboard, so and you heard me typing earlier, did it not sound like the same key was being typed over and over again? Now, say on a phone, for instance, I can see it where it's like you press certain keys in certain sequence. I can see maybe that happening, but off of the sound alone, I feel like it's a big ask. And something that you have to take note of with studies, and I say this all the time in my videos, but I will reiterate it again. You take studies with a grain of salt, because studies can maybe explain certain phenomena, but they don't really go into it. Like, you can say the unemployment rate is at 15%, but if you go outside, it doesn't look like to be 15%, not does it? Or it's not reported properly. So, just for reference. So, I kind of want to take a dive into this article, because it's kind of weird, because this got posted in 2025, but this article came out actually 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, on August 3rd, 2023. So, yeah. So, Dexerto, whoever wrote this, is a bit late when it comes down to it. But it's interesting nonetheless because, let's see what the study says. So, beginning here, it says a practical deep learning based acoustic side channel attack on keyboards. With recent developments in deep learning, the ubiquity of microphones, and the rise in online services via personal devices, acoustic side channel attacks present a greater threat to keyboards than ever. This paper presents a practical implementation of a state-of-the-art deep learning model in order to classify laptop keystrokes. Using a smartphone integrated microphone when trained on keystrokes recorded by a nearby phone, the classifier achieved an accuracy of 95%, the highest accuracy seen without the use of a language model. When trained on keystrokes recorded using the video conference software Zoom, an accuracy of 92% was achieved, a new best for the medium. Our results proved the practicality of these side channel attacks via off-the-shelf equipment and algorithms. We discuss a series of mitigation methods to protect users against these series of attacks. So now we are here when it comes down to it. And so apparently, they said 95 and 93% it can guess what you're typing based off of the sound. Now, I have a lot of questions about this, but we will answer all of those hopefully by the end. So before we discuss them more this paper. So I see here, you go here, fully automatic, like on-site remote ACA. So in both sets of experiments via phone and Zoom, 36 of the laptop's keys were used, 0, 9, A to Z, with each being pressed 25 times in a row, varying in pressure and finger, in a single file containing all 25 phases. And so in the keystroke isolation, once all the phases were recorded, a function was implemented with which individual keystrokes could be extracted. Keystroke extraction is executed in a majority of recent literature, Turdestein 7, 16, and 6, via a similar method, performing the last Fourier transform on the recording and summing the coefficients across frequencies to get energy. An energy threshold is then defined, used to signify the presence of a keystroke to complete isolation. So if you guys take a look at like the image they have up here, like you can see roughly like 6 keystrokes was like an energy and threshold, and you said the threshold flags, basically like how much energy is being outputted through the different type key typings, at least from my understanding. And you see here that the keystroke isolation process signals are converted to energy via FFT, then flagged when crossing the threshold to mark keystrokes. And so it says here, you look at the feature extraction as well. So multiple methods of audio feature extraction exist, and the literature commonly varies as to which is used. However, there are common candidates across ASCA studies, including the fast Fourier transform, Mel frequency coefficients, and cross correlation. In this paper, we propose the use of Mel spectrograms as a method of feature extraction for a DL model. A Mel spectrogram is a method of depicting sound waves and is a modified version of a spectrogram. Spectrogram represents sound as a map of colored pixels, with the Y representing frequencies and the X representing time. The brightness of a pixel XY in the spectrogram represents the amplitude of a frequency at a simple given time. So if we just jump straight to it, you can actually see here what's the corresponding. So you have the phone recording and then the Zoom one. But what you have to understand is that, especially depending on the language that you're using, because there's a lot of connotations with this, but to me, at least, I feel like when you look at this, especially if you understand a bit more technical stuff, is that when it comes down to it, if you want to get somebody's password, you're not going to use like sound to do it, because even if you're a streamer who has like thousands and thousands of hours on stream, you're typing a lot of different stuff, and some streamers don't even type that much. Imagine like an IRL streamer and you're gonna guess passwords based off of that. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me when I really look at it. So you see why I'm a bit doubtful, especially if you understand like how people even get their passwords taken. It's usually through a shady link or something. It's not using sound to guess your password. So just something to note of. When we move along to the model and selection and implementation, this is where stuff seems to probably get a bit more interesting. So it says here, we implemented a deep learning model on the process data given the visually distinguishable nature of Mel spectrograms. A model proven to work well for image classification was needed. We chose the CoAtNet model created in number 9 due to its excellent performance on the ImageNet classification dataset and its far lower training time compared to similar performing models. Generally describing CoAtNet can be seen as too consistent of 2 depth-wise convolutional layers followed by 2 global relative attention layers. The act of combining convolution and self-attention methods allows for rapid processing of patterns in the data while downsampling the size before determining the relevance of these patterns and to use to one through the calculation of attention scores. We use PyTorch to implement an instance of CoAtNet. So that's just basically telling you how they did the tests. So they just had special software that had a deep learning model to it, and deep learning tends to look a bit more into certain particular ideas or look more particular into stuff rather than your basic programming. So that's that. And this is the part where I actually really want to look at, because whenever you see a study, you always want to look at there's 3 aspects you want to look at. You look at the methodology, or how it was done. You also want to look at, the technique, the sample collection. That's because how samples are collected tell you a lot about how a study is roughly going to go, or how it can make sense how it got there. And then of course you want to look at the results to combine both the previous 2. So interesting enough, they say here they actually ran their experiments on a MacBook Pro 16-inch with 16 gigabytes of memory, and the Apple M1 Pro processor, which is a popular off-the-shelf laptop. This laptop features a keyboard identical in switch design to their models from the last 2 years, and potentially those in the future. Additionally, the small number of available models at one time, presently 3, all using the same keyboard, means that a successful attack on a single laptop could prove viable on a large number of devices. So if you have phone recording mode, we used an iPhone 13 mini placed 17 centimeters away from the leftmost side of the laptop on a folded piece of microfiber cloth shown in figure 6. The purpose of the cloth was to remove some desk vibration in the recording, as this would be vary on the type of desk used. Instead of encouraging the model to primarily from acoustics, recordings were made in stereo with a sample rate 44100 hertz and 32 bit per sample. And also for the second data set, referred to as Zoom recorded data, keystrokes were recorded using the built-in function of the video conferencing application Zoom. The Zoom meeting had a single participant, the victim, who was using the MacBook's built-in microphone array. The noise suppression parameter of Zoom was set to the minimum possible, low, but could not be completely turned off. Before typing the record on this computer button was pressed, and after logging keystrokes, the stop button was pressed, producing a M4A sound recording that was converted to a WAV format. That's the stuff you get from recordings, as noted in 3 and 8. And recording in this manner recorded no access to the victim's environment, and in this case did not require any infiltration of their device or connection. So you actually see how, like, on how the accuracy compared to it, like the training arc and the validation accuracy. And so I'm looking at this here, and it's like, yeah, it seems really, really close with the environment that's given, but there's a question that I did not even take into account yet, actually, as I'm reading this, is that what happens when you have lots of background noise, or something, or you have someone who's very busy all the time, or you have someone who's like multiple sound effects going on, okay? Because, for instance, when I'm streaming, I'm usually streaming a video game, right? And video games have lots of sounds going on. And even if I'm typing in my stuff, there's somebody shooting somebody, dialogue going on. So how accurate are these models in between, different acts, different times? So maybe if you're just streaming and just talking, it can be accurate. But my question is, what happens when there's other stuff? Because most people, when they're streaming, they have other stuff on in the background as well. Background music, I don't know, YouTube videos, all that. So you see why I have a lot of questions about this? Because even if this model is accurate, there's so many factors, especially when it comes to sound, that are not being accounted for. At least not that I can find here. And even when you started talking about the testing, it was mostly one person, like, by themselves with canvases here with noise suppression turned all the way down, which means, if noise is going on, it's, you might catch it, but, like, just something to note. Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent, but I just have those kind of questions that pop up in my brain whenever I hear this stuff. Jumping straight to their final results, it says here, in our order to report our final results, confusion matrices and classification reports were created for each of the classifiers based on test set performance. A confusion matrix depicts the number of times a model classified in an instance of each class on the x-axis as being in a class on the y-axis. For example, a value of 3 in cell x and y, where x equals 1 and y equals 2, would mean the classifier output 2 for an instance of class 1 3 times. Therefore, a perfect classifier would result in a confusion matrix with 0 in every cell where x does not equal y. A classification report details the precision, recall, F1 score, and support for each class in the dataset. Given the large number of classes in all 3 datasets, we present just the average values of these metrics across all cases, as well as the importance of the entire set. This notion of position playing a large part in keystroke recognition is reinforced by the tendency for false classifications to be a single key away in the phone recordings confusion matrix. And so you keep going down here. So you go back to figure list here. Talk about false classifications are a single key from the true value, and 6 out of 9 are within 2 keys of the true value and hence show consistent patterns. So take a look here. It says 2 keys within the true value, which means that it's pretty close from what I'm understanding, but at the same time, is it really guessing full sentences is what I want to know. Because it may guess roughly what could happen, but keep in mind too that there's also a lot of common words that are being used. That's another factor to encounter. So anything with a vowel, of course, is going to be counted for. Word like duh is going to be counted for. Maybe words like, I don't know, so, or words like, you get the point. So maybe that's also part of the prediction, because if you look at, say for example, you have data banks of like the most common words, and people are talking, you're going to find those common words in there, and maybe they're going to type it. So that's something else that I'm pointing out here that you can also take into account as we are looking at this together. So pretty interesting, actually, when you take a look at it. Okay, and so if you keep going here, while data used for both MacBook classifiers were created for this paper, and consequently no other studies have been undertaken on it, the models implemented in this paper were found to have a higher accuracy than all other neural networks surveyed in the literature. Additionally, achieved a top 5 accuracy of 91.7% when classifying MacBook keystrokes via the video conferencing application Skype. When trained on keystrokes from a similar laptop recorded via a similar medium, the Zoom keystroke classifier presented by this. So, yeah. So it's kind of, it's a little, I'm not convinced on this for like a lot of reasons, but we'll get into my opinion right after. If you look at mitigation techniques, despite not being stated as an explicit means of defense, results from 16 implied that simple typing style changes would be sufficient to avoid attack. When touch typing was used, 16 saw keystroke recognition reduced from 64% to 40%, which is still an impressive feat. May not be high enough accuracy for account for a complex featuring the shift key, backspace, and other non-alphanumeric keys. Additionally, a change in typing style may be implemented alongside mitigation techniques presented in other papers and requires no software or hardware component. And if we jump to this conclusion, it says, in this paper, we surveyed the literature available on acoustic side channel attacks on keyboards. We propose a novel deep learning based method to perform an effective attack on a keyboard. We collect our data in two modes: by recording via phone physically co-located with the laptop, and by recording via an online video conference tool, Zoom, for a remote attack. This method presented in the paper achieved a top 1 classification accuracy of 95% on phone recorded laptop keystrokes, representing improved results for classifiers not utilizing language models, and the second best accuracy seen across all surveyed literature. When implemented on the Zoom recorded data, the method in 93% accuracy and actual improved results for classifiers using such applications as attack vectors. Possible directions of feature research include more robust models of isolating keystrokes from a single recording, as all ASCA methods rely on accurately isolated keystrokes in order to identify. The use of smart speakers to record keystrokes for classification, as these devices remain always on and present in many homes. The implementation of a language model in addition to the method presented in this paper, which could improve keystroke recognition when identifying defined words, as well as an end-to-end real-world implementation of an ASC attack on a keyboard. So, that was a lot to take in, but I'm going to be honest. I think that this paper didn't really convince me, and there's a lot of stuff that it didn't account for. Like, even if you look at the mitigation techniques, even talked about using stuff like even just changing your typing style, adding a shift key. So maybe if you're typing a very simple sentence, it could possibly get it, but when you look at it, it's not really that great. And if you know anything about like cyber attacks or how people get like their information stolen, there's one technique that's called phishing, where someone pretends to be somebody of importance, and then they, they'll be like, oh, you need to deposit this in your bank quickly, give us your information. And they use stuff like your urgency and your panic to get your information. Or they pretend like you're somebody you know, and they'll be like, okay, could you send me this for me, please? And so that's one way they do it. Or you have like a shady link, especially for like prawn sites or something. Or you have, what's another common one? There's links, advertisements, all that stuff. That's how people are mostly getting caught. Or if you want to really go back in time, you have like the scam emails or the Nigerian prince and my assets are frozen, I need you to send me money, and yada yada yada. So that's those are way more effective than using sound off of a keyboard, okay? Because like I said, by the way, if you guessed the sentence that I said in this video, good job, I guess, if you got in the comments. But you see what I mean? Like, when I think about the practicality of using something like this, it doesn't sound like it's gonna work. There's so much better techniques. Okay? Because by the way, even educate people still fall for phishing scams, people still fall for like certain advertisements, people still fall for certain emails. So if those still work, then why would they want to use like sound to catch a streamer? And by the way, I have like over 200 videos on this channel, and believe me, you're not guessing any of my passwords with or any of the stuff that I'm typing with all that stuff. Because some videos there's variations in how I speak. Sometimes there's videos where I'm having a bit more fun. Sometimes the tone of the video is a bit different. Maybe I talk a bit slower here. Maybe I do something a bit there. I do some editing techniques over here. So it's like there's so much variation in what I'm doing. To guess a password or to guess what I'm typing is just, it doesn't sound like it doesn't like it works like that well. And on top of that, from my understanding, I have not seen other studies to like corroborate this, because whenever I look at a study, I see, okay, this, on its own, we're analyzing it on its own, and it seems it's interesting, but is it definitive? Like, I don't see it that way. And when I wanted to look at elsewhere, I don't know if there's anything else, but this also was posted 2 years ago, so it is what it is. But to me, this comes across as like fear mongering, which is very, very annoying. So like, while the studies, there's nothing harm with doing a study on this, I find like, people like, oh, streamers can be attacked can get their passwords guessed based on what they're typing. No, your password's going to be guessed based off of maybe common words that you use or words that you say a lot. They're going to guess maybe that. People in your life might be a password, and that's it. And so, if if you don't want to have your passwords guessed, essentially you can have something like a password bank, and you could just generate random passwords, and you just do that. I recommend something like Bitwarden. It's pretty decent. Okay, like Bitwarden keeps your passwords and it generates them for you, and that's all you gotta do. So yeah. So to me, like keys being pressed, is it really gonna do it? Like if I do something like this, that you're gonna know I know I'm pressing one key, but if I do something like this, that's a different combo entirely. Or I can do something like this. Like it's so is what it is. But regardless of all that, despite my grievances with the study, it's still an interesting read nonetheless. I'll link it down below if you want to take a look at it. But yeah, so yeah, sound and streamers, come on. I don't really buy it, but that's just me. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and follow my socials down in the description below. And make sure you comment the word I type in the beginning of the video if you're still here. So I'll see you in the next one.